Welcome to Retroford. This is the fourth instalment of our technical guides, and today we're going to be looking at all the components you need to get your Zetec in a Mark 1, Mark 2 Escort. So first we move around the front here, we've got the alternator kit. Now we often get asked a lot of questions about the alternator kit and do we need a reverse impeller water pump. The alternator kit we do, if you buy the kit in its entirety, runs serpentine on the back of the water pump, the same as Ford designed it. So we've stuck with that design. We put an idler pulley up here, and then you put an alternator here, and that puts the water pump in the correct rotation. This is obviously a brand new black top. Now the next thing to move on to, as far as getting it in an Escort, is the sump. Now originally the sump is a two-piece cast aluminium and steel part. Now I have got one of these on the bench here, and you can see that it's completely wrong for a rear-wheel drive application, because you need to try and get over the steering rack in most applications, whether it be an Escort or whether it be a Cortina. So this sump that we manufacture is cast in aluminium, and that gives you clearance over the steering rack. Later on in the series we're going to do how to fit each component and the details about it, but this is a brief video explaining the parts you need and why you need them. So that rounds up the sump. Now the next thing is engine mounts, and you've got a choice of either having a World Cup engine mount, and that uses a leaf spring type bush. Typically customers will run this if it's maybe a fast road car, rally car or a race car, because that's got a better location, and you can in some of our kits you can swap out and have either standard mounts or World Cup mounts, and obviously we do the cross member to suit. Now both these mounts put the engine in exactly the same position. So over here on the bench I've got the standard mounts that use a RS2000 stroke Cortina 50mm rubber. Now they've got a little bit more compliance, and this is on one of our cross members, so they're available also. So it's really which way you want to go. Road cars typically run these, and some race cars, but rally cars that are jumping, these aren't really man enough for the job. So that sort of rounds up the engine mounts and cross members. The next thing to move on to is plug leads. Now typically the coil pack bracket on a front wheel drive engine, because obviously this engine's never been in a rear wheel drive, they're all designed as front wheel drive engines, and the coil pack is here above the gearbox and there's plenty of room. Obviously there's no room for it to live over here, so we've made a bracket which you can see under here, and that relocates the coil pack, puts it underneath here. Some people worry that the coil pack is bolted to the engine. Now Ford bolted it to the engine here, and all we've done is moved it over here. So yeah, I think some people are worried that the vibrations get to it, but that's how Ford designed it. And yeah, we never want here to reinvent the wheel. If Ford have come up with an idea, then we're not going to reinvent that. Next is the water manifold. Now typically when this becomes rear wheel drive, you end up with a bulkhead here, and the bulkhead is quite close to the back of the engine. This is an original water manifold. This would bolt on there like that, and you can see that's quite deep there. You've got sort of 70-80mm there. So Retroford manufactured this one, and that puts the thermostat here nice and close to the engine. It comes with a fan switch, a temp sender, and then it's got a bung in here which you can put your ECU sender in. Again, that rounds that up. And then next is the clutch and flywheel. Again, Ford have kept this bolt pattern. So this bolt pattern here on the back of the Zetec is the same for crossflow, Pinto, pre-crossflow. So they've stuck with that bolt pattern for a long time. So what I'm going to do is remove that in a minute. First I'm going to explain the starter motor. Now the starter motor, there isn't many components off your original engine. So say you've bought a donor Focus, people often ask what bits can I keep off the engine, and to be fair there isn't a lot you can keep off the engine at all. The alternator isn't any good because it runs a voltage regulator in the ECU, so that's no good. The starter motor has the wrong configuration and bolt pattern for anything rear wheel drive. The flywheel and clutch arrangement is shallower, so that isn't any good, but we'll come back to the clutch and flywheel once I've took the bell housing off. So as you can see, we manufacture this nice slim starter motor, and this, if you're using an RS2000 bell housing, which this is, which has got the twin starter motors on it, so you've got provision to put a starter motor this side or this side. Now typically what you would do if you're using it on a cable bell housing is you can swap the arm to go either side, whether you're left hand drive, right hand drive, and the sump also. You can take the dipstick tube out of this side, put it on this side, and move the starter motor over that side, so that you can go from left hand drive to right hand drive. Same with the exhaust manifold, we do a left hand drive and a right hand drive. So I'm going to pop the starter motor off and the bell housing off, so that we can see inside there and explain the clutch and flywheel to you. So you can see here we've fitted a flywheel. Now we do two different weights of flywheels. We do a standard weight one and a lightweight one, and they all use a Pinto clutch. Now the reason for that is that when using a Type 9 gearbox, which is typically what a lot of people will run, then the face from the fingers to the block face, we've done that the same as a Pinto. So that means that the Pinto clutch works, the Pinto release bearing works, and also the release arm for a Pinto works on that as well. Also, thankfully, Ford counterbored the back of the crank the right size to take a spigot bearing. So that gives you the support on your first motion shaft on your gearbox. And then if you buy one of the kits off us, that just then hammers in the back there, and thankfully Ford put that in, because if they hadn't put it in, then you'd be in all sorts of trouble having to try and make something up to support the first motion shaft. So that rounds up that really. The next thing to move on to is the throttle bodies. Now lots of people ask the question, do you do carburetors? To be fair, we do sell carburetors, but the people are scared of throttle body sometimes because they think it's got an ECU and all that, but it's very simple. A carburetor is quite a complex thing. There's an awful lot going on inside a carburetor, whereas a throttle body kit, the most complex thing about it is the ECU, which is not something that the end user normally gets involved with. You set your throttle position sensor, and on an engine like this standard blacktop with this Omex throttle body kit, then they typically make 165 horsepower. Sometimes we've seen them get very near to 170 horsepower, but this kit then comes pre-mapped, so there's no need to take it to a rolling road if you're on a brand new engine. So that pretty much wraps that up. I mean, originally this would have, coming back to that, this would have had a plastic inlet manifold like this. Now some people try and use this, but typically it collides with the engine mount, the alternator, and everything else, and it's ugly. So yeah, although it might save you some money, if you open the bonnet, that's not something you want to see. This is what you want to see, don't you? So the next thing is the exhaust manifold. Now we've played around with lots of different primary lengths, so that's your primary length there, secondaries, size of the primaries, the size of the secondaries, and after lots of testing, this is what we've come up with as a match length primary manifold. These typically, with this setup, again, the throttle bodies have been mapped to suit this exhaust manifold. Now this exhaust manifold, whether it be left hand drive, right hand drive, Cortina, they're all very similar, so they all work fine with the map that's on that ECU. So I think that rounds it up. But what we are going to do in this series is come back to each product and then show how the product's fitted, things like the sump, all the torque settings, everything, how you put it all together is something we're going to do in later videos. So we'll be starting a series of those videos quite soon to show the customer how to put a product on. So when you go on the website and click on a product such as a water manifold, then there will be an embedded video in the website showing you how to fit it again. So thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share all the videos we do, and yeah, we'll speak again soon. Thank you. Bye bye.